Hi guys, so it's worm vlog update time. It has been a month since I've checked in with you. Things are going much better over the past month with my African night crawlers in particular. My red wigglers are good. They're always good. They are the best little worms ever. If you had not seen my update last month, you need to go see what was going on because it was a poop show. It was my cat's back there being a cat. Things were nuts last month. I had just gotten African night crawlers about a week and a half before the update, and I was having a hard time keeping them contained. I had lost about 20%, if not more than 20% of my worm population because they were just literally escaping all over my kitchen floor, and I was developing a little bit of anxiety about like, what am I gonna walk into every time I walked into the kitchen, every time I left the house, worrying about what they were gonna do when I was gone, leaving the kitchen lights on to try and do anything I could to keep them contained. So I was not in a good place at this point last month, and I was kind of just accepting the fate that maybe they were all just gonna die off and I wouldn't have African night crawlers. So it wasn't good. I am really happy to report that in the past month, I've only lost 2 that I know of, and that the rest are staying inside the worm composter home. They're in their home, they're staying inside their home. Out of the 2 that I lost, 1 had definitely escaped, and I'll show you what I think is happening when they do escape. But the other one might have died from that initial exodus. It was like all the way over in the corner, and I found it after my last update. But to be honest, I'm not sure if it was one of the original worms that escaped or if I lost him since my update last month. So I either lost 1 or 2, but I found 2 dead worms this past month. So compared to the like 60 or 70 dead worms I was dealing with last month, it's much better, and we're still leaving the light on all the time. Why are you chewing so loud? We're still leaving the kitchen light on all the time, especially at night, just to be safe. But I kind of feel like if we turn the light off, it would be okay, but I'm too afraid to do that, so we just keep the kitchen light on all night long. I do have a funny clip of the African night crawlers that I took a couple days after the last update. It was bizarre, so I'm going to show you guys that one right now. I was just heading up to bed.
Are you done cut up those? Wow.
No, I'm going to let them grow. We'll see what they do. They'll probably die off. But look at him.
Oh my goodness.
He's crawling back in, it looks like.
Yeah, he's going back in. He looks like.
I thought I was going to have to pick him up off the floor.
Yeah.
Get in there, buddy.
He's still crawling out. I don't know why he's crawling out.
I don't either, Hayes. Get in.
I think he just doesn't want.
He's going faster.
They're so strong.
Wow, he's going faster and faster.
And it
Faster,
looks like
faster,
these
faster,
pumpkins
faster,
right
faster,
here.
Mm-hmm. Get in. Get in.
And you see this right here.
I'm disgusted.
It was weird. So let's dig into the bin. I basically have not touched these bins much in the past month other than to throw in some food and some paper. So for today, what I really want to do is dig around and see if there's any signs of cocoons in the African nightcrawler bins, and to see where we're at with the process of composting the material. One of my biggest concerns is that I'm not going to make it through the winter without having to harvest, and I really don't want to have to do that because then I'd have to store the compost somewhere until spring. It would be much easier if I could just ride it out to spring and then do a harvest of all these bins and then go from there. I also just want to get an idea of what the population looks like as far as crowding. One of my bins is very small, one of them is very large, one is kind of medium sized. So we're going to dig around with the worms today and see what information we can gather. So let's do that right now. Are you gonna go lay down? Go lay down. Go lay down. I'm filming. I'm doing a worm update. Okay, so here is where my African night crawlers are. This is the hot frog composter, I think it's called, and it has 2 trays that are pretty much packed with bedding and food and worms. I also have my rake on top. And then there's this bottom tray that if you lift up will catch some of the extra runoff water, which you could dispose of so that the worms don't drown. I so far have not had any extra runoff water, but I do have some dirt down there, and I think what happens is that every once in a while a worm gets down there and then they have nowhere to go. So then they try to get out and then they end up on my kitchen floor. So I think since I've been using this system, the few worms that have escaped, that's why they escaped. They went down to the bottom, they had nowhere to go except for out, and then they fell on the floor and tried to find somewhere to go and they had nowhere to go, so that's what happened. So let's take a look at what the bins looks like. I think I need to adjust my cameras again. This angle is not good, is it? Okay, so let's start off by taking the 2 trays off, and we'll just look at the bottom tray where the runoff goes. Kitty, go lay down. So here is what the bottom part looks like. It looks like a lot of processed worm poo. I'm not seeing any worms. I don't think I'm seeing any cocoons. So sometimes what I do is I dump this back into the top bin just in case there's anything alive in there and I've missed it. So there is some moisture in this top bin on the lid, which I like to see. I want moisture, but not like dripping wet. So I'm gonna just dump all that back in here. So I've emptied this out what I could. There's still a little bit stuck on the sides, but that's okay. Time to look at the bottom tray, and every time I check on these worms, that is where all of the action is. So I'm gonna put the bottom tray, this is getting heavy. Okay, so let's lift up this tray right here and see what's going on. I'm gonna warn you right now, every time I've ever lifted it up, there are worms that are halfway between the top tray and the bottom tray and they're dangling. So that's what I'm expecting to see right now. And of course, it's not happening. You guys, of course it's not. There's always like 30 worms dangling between the top tray and the bottom tray. But the one time I want to show you what's going on, they're not doing it. All right, so this is what my bottom tray of African night crawlers looks like right now. There's a couple on top, but most of them are buried deep down. There is an actual surprising amount of what appears to be black gold. They are going through all of this. I put this shredded paper bag on here about a week ago. These leaves have been on here for maybe 3 weeks. They look like lace.
I don't have it.
So let's dig around and see if I can find any cocoons. Part of the reason I've been avoiding this is that they're in here, and I don't want them to make them uncomfortable and give them a reason to leave. I want them to stay in here. So I really haven't been digging around in here too much for that reason. This looks like it could be a cocoon right here. They say that the African night crawlers are very good reproducers. They're very prolific. I can't imagine what this would be if it's not a cocoon. All right, I'm gonna put this to the side for now, right here. And I'm gonna keep looking. Oh boy, they're so big. I'm finding a couple mites crawling through here, which I knew they were in here, but my red wiggler bin has a lot more mites than this. Okay, here's something else that looks very much like it could be a worm cocoon. Okay, so as I continue to dig, I am seeing some pockets of bedding and leaves that are buried. Oh, is that a cocoon? No. Oh yeah, look at that. Plenty of bedding down here. I'm not seeing a ton of worms, and I'm not seeing a ton of cocoons, but there's definitely life and a ton of worm poo. Black gold. I think I found another cocoon. Right there. I kind of want to, oh, pretty sure that's a cocoon. That looks just like a cocoon. Right there. I'm still getting sprouts from the pumpkin seeds in here. All right, let's turn this around and I'll investigate the other side. There's Oh boy, there's a big guy right on the top. Look at him. I think I found a baby. Or two. Wow, so that must be, that's something I've been wondering, is what does a baby African nightcrawler look like? Because I wasn't sure how big they would be. But I don't know if you could see. Here's a baby and here's a baby. And I don't know how old they are. I mean, were they just hatched like today? Are they a couple days old? Are they a week old? I don't know. But that's really nice to see. I think this is another cocoon. Okay, so is that another baby right there? Yep, there's another baby. Okay, I'm feeling very, very encouraged by all of the babies that I'm finding through here. It tells me that the worms are happy, that this is a hospitable environment for them, and that hopefully the worms that I lost last month, the numbers will be replaced. And then I'll have to decide what I want to do when I have too many worms. So that's a good problem to have. So before I go to the top tray, I'm going to sprinkle some eggshells and some food on top. Here are my ground eggshells. I keep them in this container. That helps them with digestion. And here is some food. This is a box of rice checks that had gone bad in my cabinets. It is not edible for humans, but the worms will love it. So I ground it up in a blender and I'm gonna feed it to the worms. Bon appetit. And without working too hard, I found 5 cocoons that are all at different stages of maturity. This more yellowy one in the middle is probably the newest, and the darker ones are probably the oldest. Very cool. I'm just gonna put them right there. Okay. Let's check the tray above. So let's take a look at the top tray. This is where I dump the majority of the food. I do still sometimes put bedding and food in the bottom tray, as you just saw. But this is where, like, I just pop this lid off and dump out my coffee grounds. I have some avocado shells. And there's just a ton of unprocessed bedding up here. There's a lot more mite action up here as well, because there's more food up here. So let's have a dig around and see what we can see. Oh, there's a worm. He just ran under here. I don't know where he went. These were some egg cartons that I threw in here, ripped up and threw in here. Oh, here's a rotten tomato. Oh, there's the worm. Here's where the food is over here. That's where the worms are. I have an apple core. I don't know if you could see it, and a tomato in this corner. And that's where the action is. Let me turn this so you can see. So right here is an apple core and a tomato. And I'm seeing the worms kind of surrounding that. So that's good. That's where I would expect them to be.
How did someone pick up these babies? Like, when your nose is itchy and it's so heavy.
So obviously there's a lot more unprocessed bedding up here. I do eventually hope that the worms will all come up to this level, and then I can process and sift through the bottom level quicker. But right now it seems like there's more worms on the bottom level than the top level. Although I am seeing some worms over here, so that's good. There's a little party happening over here. So hopefully they'll start moving their way up to this level. I'm gonna cover that food so that I don't attract any fruit flies. I have no idea if I have enough bedding in here and space in here to get me through the winter, but I feel good that they're fine for now. It is amazing to see how much they've processed in that bottom tray. There's just a lot of worm poo in that bottom tray, so very cool. Okay, so I know for the last couple months it's been all about the African night crawlers, but I don't want to neglect my red wigglers, so let's take a look at them and see how they're doing. I have these two bins, and this bottom one is like 4 times bigger than the top one. So the top one's the one I'm most worried about overflowing. I did harvest this bin back in like September, and so all new fresh bedding went into this bin, this smaller bin, in September, along with about 600 red wigglers. I counted them out when I did the harvest. So look at that growth. If anybody saw that amount of mold growing in their home, they would be freaking out. But if you have worms, you know that that's just a natural part of the decomposition process. I have more avocados in this bin. I've really been on quite an avocado kick lately. On the top, I have paper and leaves and coffee grounds. There's plenty of bedding. But when I get through this top layer where all of the bedding has been laid on top, the worms have been busy eating and living. I'm seeing some babies on the back of this leaf, so that's pretty awesome. I'm liking the moisture content. It's moist but not wet. But everything below this layer of leaves looks like it's ready to be sifted through once again.
How would you do that? How would you do that?
Oh wow. Look at all this action over here. What you guys doing?
What is that?
Wow. It's like a worm ball over here. Wonder why there's such a party going on over here. There's something food that I'd put over here. I can feel it. I don't remember off the top of my head what food was in here, but they're eating it. That's why they're all over here. And then here's the other side. So again, lots of worm action. I hope you can see. It's just hard to hold the camera with one hand and dig with the other. So I have my camera in the tripod. Is that a cocoon? Yep, there's a cocoon. They're so small compared to the nightcrawler cocoons. So this bin looks like it's doing really good. I don't feel like I need to do anything to it at all. They have food, they have moisture. Maybe I could add a little bit of eggshell just because you can never have too much eggshell. Ugh. Okay, so I'm really happy with that bin. Happy worms, happy worm mom. And then this is the last bin of red wigglers. This bin has been running since the end of July or maybe the beginning of August, and I have not sifted through it at all. I have not harvested any of the castings yet. I gotta tell you guys, I have been drinking a type of Starbucks coffee called peppermint mocha, and these bins have never smelled better. It's really nice to open these bins and smell peppermint mocha. That's a pleasure. So that's, can you guys see this bin? There's paper, there's coffee grounds, and there's just a ton of leaves and bedding. So I'm not seeing anything right on the top, but I want to check the moisture content of this bin. This bin always runs a bit more dry than my other bins. There's some worms. Okay.
Look at my scarf.
I love it. So as I'm digging through over here, it's not dry, but it's not wet. But there's worms over here, so they must be okay. I would assume that if the conditions were not hospitable, they wouldn't be hanging out over here. I do have a hard time seeing anything in this bin because it's so dark. It's so much easier to see what's going on in that smaller clear bin. There's a worm. There's another worm. All right, so damp. Oh, there's a lot more worm action going on over here. What do I have buried over here? That's so much more interesting. Oh, wow, yeah. Lots, oh, there's a banana peel. Let me show you this. So here's a banana peel that was buried in the bin. And when you open it, it's just lined with worms. Top and bottom. Worms love bananas and banana peels, so that's really cool to see. So they have food. They have some place to go if they're hungry. This bin's good. I'll add some eggshells to this bin as well. Here's another avocado.
Hungry.
So recently I've been watching some videos on a harvesting system called the horizontal migration. And basically what that means is when you have a bin about this size, you can starve one half. So nothing goes on half of the bin. All the food goes on the other half. And you do that for, I need to look into how long you need to do that for. I'm thinking a couple months. And theoretically, after a few months, if you've only been feeding this half of the bin, there will be no worms on this half. They will have all moved to this side for the food and the moisture that they need. And then it'll be easier to harvest this half of the bin where the worms have all left. And after doing my first harvest in September, I will admit that it was a much bigger job than I anticipated. It was, my back was sore for like 3 days after doing that because I thought I would just be sitting on the floor for a couple hours, and I ended up sitting on the floor for like 8 hours hunched over the dirt, and it was very time consuming. So I am thinking about trying the horizontal migration with this bin, but not quite yet. So eventually I'm gonna start feeding just one side, and we'll see if the worms evacuate the other side and if this horizontal migration makes it easier to harvest when it's time to harvest the castings. So all the bins are thriving. They're looking good. I'm feeling optimistic. Here's the thing. Even with these 3 systems running, 2 big bins of red wigglers, a bin of African night crawlers, we are still creating more food waste than the worms are able to consume. So I am going to have to expand this operation a bit more. I have some empty Tupperware containers in the basement that would be perfect. I don't want to do that yet. I'd like to wait until spring. But at some point we will be expanding this operation a bit more. I'm not planning on buying any more worms. I'm done buying worms. I'm just going to work with the worms that I have. But at some point we will be expanding this operation to more bins. So that's the update. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.